Hello everybody, this is Napa Fan here, and this is the final qualifying session of 2019 on Napa Fan, on the NOFSRL channel actually. I'm gonna do some pretty good rebranding for this channel next year, but we're excited for 2020, but we gotta close out the decade, and my golly, we got a good one to close it out. And how fitting is it that the first driver to come out onto the racetrack here in this qualifying session is the driver who leads in the championship coming into this finale race at Homestead. That is Fisher G in the number 43. 447 points towards the championship, but only 22 points behind him. It's Edwin Mendez, and that is the closest the points have been since the first half of the season. So we'll have to see how it all plays out in tomorrow evening's race, Christmas night, 5 p.m. Eastern, on Napa Fan. It's the New Era 259 to crown a champion in the Turkey Hill Truck Series. Edwin Mendez is 22 points behind. Dan Park, 31 points behind. They are the three guys that we are going to focus on, and hopefully I will have the willpower to put the points up on the corner of your screen for the race tomorrow, so that you know where each driver is in the finale race, where they stand in the points as the race goes along. But this is important, and qualifying was massively important at Darlington because Fisher G did not get a good run there, and it caused him to lose a ton of ground. He came into that race with a 51-point lead. He lost 29 points at Darlington last week. He does not want that to happen again. He's currently 5th right now. We'll have to see where he can qualify here at Homestead. Like Darlington, Homestead's not an easy track to work your way through the field. You relatively stay in the same position you start in. He's currently 2nd, though, right now. That is exactly what he needs. But another big factor here in Homestead, we do tend to see a lot of wrecks. And we're back to using the original version of Homestead that we used for a lot of the other finales. You know, we used a different version of this racetrack for the Chick-fil-A Cup Series finale over the summer, but we decided to go back to the one we always know and love that has given us so many memorable finishes. And Fisher G here is not wasting any time. Top of the board for the number 43. Let's check in some of their other championship contenders. There's Edwin Mendez in the 63. And Mendez is currently coming out onto the racetrack. Dan Park in the 2 has yet to complete a full lap under speed himself, so we don't really have a time to compare to the other two championship contenders, but all that Fisher G really needs to do is get a top 20 finish in this race, and he'll be able to clinch it. 22 points ahead, and maybe not top 20, top 15 he'll clinch. Top 20, and then if Edwin Mendez wins the race, then we could see him possibly gain enough bonus points to surpass him. And Edwin Mendez almost won last Saturday at Darlington. Jason Tucker, Edwin Mendez, Jason Tucker and Eric Monaco, the top 2 right there, with now Turner taking the top position. Jesse Turner won the first race of the decade on Napa Fan. Of course, the first ever race on Napa Fan. He'd love to win the last race of the decade on Napa Fan. This is going to be the last race. Of course, we had the Christmas Eve 500 earlier this morning. Congratulations once again to Wyatt Quayle for winning that one, but the official last race of the year and of the 2010s. Why did I almost say the 19? I don't know. Who cares anymore? But last race of the decade right here. New Era 259. Wouldn't it be something if Jesse Turner finally got that Turkey Hill Truck Series race victory in the last race of the year? Fisher G is doing an excellent job right now. 7th fastest here in qualifying for our points leader. Dan Park is 12th. Now, Dan Park really needs a miracle to happen. He's 31 points behind. He effectively needs Fisher G to get knocked out of the race if he's going to have any shot. And Edwin Mendez in the 63, currently 23rd. So it's working out pretty well for Fisher G right now. Of course, it's a long race, 44 laps, the longest race of the season, actually, for these guys. So there's going to be a lot of time for these guys to make mistakes and get up to the front. And like I mentioned, it is difficult to work your way through the field here. But if you have enough time, you might be able to get something to work. Mendez is falling down the 21st. He actually gained up there a little bit, fell back. Fisher G is still 6th right now. Great run for him. Dan Park 19th. Mendez 23rd. So it's a good qualifying session for Fisher G. He's not going to let what happened to him last week happen again. We only had a 5-minute session last week at Darlington. That might have been part of the reason why he didn't get a good time in. This is a 10-minute session, a little bit more time for him to get that good time in. Of course, the fastest guy right now is Trey Smith, with Jesse Turner 2nd, Adam Garcia in 3rd, Jason Tucker and Agar Barreto, the only drivers under 30 seconds, with Fisher G 6th, Matt Tuck, Emily Anderson, Cole Sampson, and Eric Monaco, the top 10. Shane Lake won at Chicagoland earlier this year. He's heading down the pit lane. Let's see. Seth Cole moved up to 6th. Gonna put Fisher G in 7th. But both Edwin Mendez and Dan Park are deep in the field. 26th and 28th for those drivers. And that is not at all what they need in this championship hunt. Just the way it goes sometimes, and that's why we do these qualifying sessions. Qualifying means so much, and it's almost looking like it could be a situation where they're going to need Fisher G to wreck out in the race if they're going to have a shot at the title. But even if they finish that deep in the field, regardless of where Fisher G finishes, they're not going to win the championship. Mendez needs to gain 22 points. He has the tiebreaker on Fisher G as of race victory this season, and so does Dan Park. So both Dan Park and Edwin Mendez hold the tiebreaker on Fisher G. So if they tie, whoever's below Fisher G coming into this race is going to win the championship if they tie in points at the end of the race. But it's going to be interesting to see if they even have that opportunity to do so. 27th and 29th. That is exactly, it's like the complete opposite of what happened last week at Darlington. Mendez and Park both started in the top 10, both finished in the top 10, and Fisher G started outside the top 30. Right now, both Mendez and Park are on the verge of starting outside the top 30, and Fisher G, 10th right now, inside the top 10. I don't think he's going to advance his time. Turner looks fast in that 75. Jason Holman, the owner of this team, they got a good driver. Just Jesse Turner and the Turkey Hill Truck Series don't really mix too well. We'll have to see what Turner can do in the race tomorrow. Fisher G is falling outside the top 10. He's 11th right now. Dan Park 28th. Edwin Mendez 30th. And how these sessions go, if you don't get a good time early on, it looks like Dan Park's coming down. You know what? He passed his pit stall. I think he's already been down. And he's looking to get back out there and get a good time in. Dan Park is not going to falter in this championship hunt. I'll tell you that much. And I mentioned it the past 2 races. What if he didn't have that issue at Chicagoland? If he did not, if we had a, say, 30-point swing in that race, if he finished in the top 5 in that race instead of failing to finish in 36th, he'd be 1 point off the points lead right now coming into this race, Dan Park would. But that mechanical issue at Chicagoland, and we mentioned it when it happened at Chicagoland, it could mean everything towards Dan Park losing this championship. That is a tough way to lose it, but that one race back at Chicagoland on Black Friday might be the deciding factor in this Turkey Hill Truck Series championship. And both Dan Park and Edwin Mendez outside the top 30 right now. But Dan Park might get a good run here. If he can get a bit of a draft on Joshua Rush ahead of him, he might have a shot here at moving himself through the field. Fisher G's 14th, now 16th. You know, it's not like Fisher G's got a good run right now, so he could fall back and Dan Park, Edwin Mendez close back in. Remember, it's a 44-lap race. It's a long, long race for these guys tomorrow night. We'll have to see how it all plays out for them. They're going to be right next to each other, starting in the same row, but deep in the field, 31st and 32nd. This is Dan Park's opportunity to close in, but he doesn't have any drafting help. He's too far behind to get anything to work right there. And by the looks of it, they're going to start deep in the field with Fisher G starting midway. Fisher G's 18th quickest right now. I'm not entirely sure if that's where you want to be, because at this point, he's only 12 positions ahead of those guys. Last year's winner of this race, Nicholas Samedeo, currently the slowest driver in the field. Of course, this is a good track for Samedeo. Advanced his time a little bit there, but that didn't mean much to him. And Dan Park doing all he can, but I just don't think he's going to have enough here. 32nd for Dan Park, 33rd for Edwin Mendez, 19th for Fisher G right now. He fell back at the end of this thing. But Jesse Turner looking to win the final pole of the decade. Number 75 with a great run right there, 29.757 for Turner. With Owen Miles in second, Cole Sampson, Trey Smith, Nick Smith, Adam Garcia, Jason Tucker, Igor Barreto, Matt Tuck, and Seth Cole. Fisher G in 19th, Dan Park 32nd, Edwin Mendez 33rd. And that's going to do it. Jesse Turner has won the final pole of the decade. In the New Era 259, he will lead the field of the green flag tomorrow night. The Wangwu and Madison Toll tied. The Wangwu has the tiebreaker on those guys. Joshua Rush and Eric Monaco tied. We'll have to break that one. And we had one, but I believe it got broken as one of the drivers advanced their time. So that is it for the tiebreakers. But Dan Park and Edwin Mendez, that is not at all what you want to see. But it is the longest race of the season. It's not as hard to move your way through the field here at Homestead as it is at Darlington. But in these trucks, it's a lot harder than it is in the Cup cars. So you're going to have to watch out for those guys in the race. We'll do our best to have the points go up there in the corner so that every lap we rotate it, you know where they stand in points. But either way, Dan Park and Edwin Mendez are going to have a lot of work cut out for them in tomorrow night's New Era 259. If they want to have a shot at this championship ahead of Fisher G, Mendez 22 points behind, Dan Park 31 points behind. All Fisher G needs is to stay ahead of him, and he's got the championship in the bag. We'll have to see what happens tomorrow at Homestead on Napa Fam, 5 p.m. Eastern, Christmas night. Gonna be a Christmas present for someone here in the Turkey Hill Truck Series. Thank you guys so much for watching. Congratulations to Jesse Turner for winning the pole, and I will see you guys later. Merry Christmas.